At 2:45 a.m. on the night of September 21st, 2025, the waters off Crimea should have been calm, still, black and silent. But in that hour, the sea became the stage for a confrontation no one expected, and for Russia, no one survived. Anchored less than 70 miles from the front lines, a Russian Bayan-M-class warship, valued at over $85 million, was preparing for what Moscow proudly described as a routine demonstration of its new 3M-22 Zircon missile system. But this was no demonstration. Behind the technical jargon and official statements was something more sinister, a trap waiting for the right prey. High above at 14,000 feet, a Ukrainian MiG-29 patrol jet carved its path across the sky. To the pilot, a 27-year-old with less than 400 flight hours, it was just another routine surveillance run. He had no way of knowing that below, the ship's radar had already locked onto him, calculating a firing solution with cold precision. At 2:47 a.m., a missile worth nearly $2.5 million tore into the sky at nearly Mach 3. 22 seconds later, it found its target. The warhead ripped through the MiG's right wing, shearing away 150 square feet of metal and igniting a fuel line. Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed as the jet spun violently toward the sea. With only seconds to react, the pilot ejected at barely 1,200 feet, slamming into the freezing waters of the Black Sea. His aircraft, worth $45 million, disappeared beneath the waves. On board the Russian ship, officers raised their glasses. They had not only tested their weapon, they had humiliated Ukraine. For them, it was a triumph, but for Kyiv, the strike was no accident. It was a deliberate provocation, an ambush meant to intimidate. Instead, it sparked something far more dangerous: rage. At 2:50 a.m., the downed pilot's distress signal reached Ukrainian command. Silence filled the operations room as coordinates flashed across the screens. A frontline fighter jet had been erased in less than 30 seconds. General Serhiy Melnik, head of Ukraine's Southern Air Command, slammed his fist on the table. His words cut like steel. "If they want to send a message, we'll answer with fire." Within minutes, the order went out. Operation Black Storm. Not a single missile, not a handful of jets, but a swarm, 950 suicide drones. The largest drone assault Ukraine had ever attempted. Each machine was cobbled together in hidden workshops: fiberglass frames, motorcycle engines, commercial explosives. Cost per unit, less than $3,000. In total, the entire swarm represented less than $2.9 million, a fraction of the value of the single missile that had just destroyed the MiG. But if even 5% broke through, the Russian warship's fate would be sealed. At 3:20 a.m., the night sky erupted. From 3 secret coastal sites, hundreds of UAVs rose like hornets, buzzing into the darkness. Radar operators aboard the Russian vessel watched their screens light up, dozens, then hundreds of contacts, closing fast. Chaos replaced confidence. The first 200 drones climbed high, broadcasting false radar signatures, overwhelming Russian screens with phantom echoes. The ship responded with panic, firing off interceptors worth $80,000 each at drones that cost less than a used car. Within minutes, over $6 million in ammunition was gone, and the wave still advanced. Then came the second layer, 200 sacrificial rams diving head-on at the ship's defenses. The Pontier S-1 system barked, spitting tracers into the night, cannons glowing red. Dozens of drones were shredded mid-air, but others slipped through, detonating against radar dishes and outer plating. The ship's defenses were cracking, its magazines depleting at a terrifying pace. And then, the killing wave. 550 drones, skimming just 12 feet above the waves, racing at 95 miles per hour. A wall of buzzing steel, each carrying a small but deadly charge. Russian sailors fired everything they had, cannons, rifles, even flares. But it wasn't enough. The swarm pressed closer. By 3:26 a.m., the warship had expended nearly 70% of its ready ammunition. Officers shouted, "Targets everywhere, no clear lock!" But the drones kept coming. At 3:27 a.m., the first strikes landed. 12 drones smashed into the starboard side, tearing open steel plating, igniting exposed cables. Seconds later, another 40 crashed into the deck, shattering hatches, fragmenting control rooms. The ship lurched, tilting 6 degrees, alarms shrieking across every compartment. Then came the fatal blow. 18 drones broke through and dove directly at the vessel's most vulnerable heart, the fuel tanks and ammunition magazines. The first explosion tore open a fuel reservoir, creating a fireball visible 15 miles away. 2 more slammed into the munitions hold. Inside, shells and missiles ignited in a chain reaction. The result was apocalyptic. A thunderous secondary explosion ripped through the ship, bending steel like paper, hurling fragments hundreds of feet into the air. The shock waves shattered antennas, split decks, and silenced command channels. By 3:31 a.m., the Bayonne was no longer a warship. It was a floating inferno. Crew members leapt into the sea, swallowed by flames and smoke. Witnesses described it as a volcano erupting on water. By 3:40 a.m., it was over. The pride of Russia's Black Sea Fleet reduced to twisted metal and drifting wreckage. Out of 78 sailors, at least 41 were dead or missing. Dozens more suffered burns, shrapnel wounds, or hypothermia as they struggled in the waves. The economic shock was staggering. A fleet cornerstone worth more than $85 million, armed with 8 caliber cruise missiles capable of striking targets 1,000 miles away, neutralized by homemade drones worth less than $3 million total. Western analysts called it the $3 million strike that rewrote naval warfare. For Russia's Black Sea Fleet, the psychological blow was even greater. Once secure harbors were now abandoned. Ships were forced hundreds of miles east, sailors whispering of death in the night skies. Confidence collapsed, and the world watched in disbelief. A superpower's fortress destroyed, not by billion-dollar missiles, but by ingenuity, numbers, and timing. For Ukraine, it was more than retribution. It was proof that David could still strike Goliath. For Russia, it was a chilling reminder. No harbor, no bay, no fortress is safe when the swarm comes. And for the rest of the world, it was a glimpse into the future of war. The age of the steel giants is ending. The age of the swarm has begun. So what happens next? Will drones decide the wars of tomorrow? And if so, who can stop them? Stay with us. The story is only beginning.